So today we're going to be introducing the idea of inequalities. We're going to talk about what they are, and then we're going to practice graphing inequalities. Okay? So let's first define inequality. So an inequality is a mathematical sentence. I'm going to put sentence in quotation marks. Okay, so we say that equations are also mathematical sentences, right? I've used that term before. But this time, instead of an equal sign, we're going to have something different. It's going to say that one expression or one side of the inequality is greater than or less than the other side. Okay, so an inequality is a mathematical sentence, kind of like an equation, that states that one expression or one side is greater than or less than the other side. Okay, so in other words, we're going to have two sides just like our equation, but instead of having an equal sign, we're going to have a different type of sign in the middle. We're going to create a little table. It needs to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And one side we're going to put a symbol, so it can be a little smaller. And the other side is where we're going to write how that symbol would be expressed in words. Okay, the first one's easy. When we see this symbol, we know that it means what? Equal to. So if we were to see an equation and we saw that equal sign, we would say something like 3x plus 2 is equal to 10. When we got to the equal sign, we would say the phrase is equal to. All right, this next one, you guys probably learned these when you were in like first grade and you made little monsters or sharks or crocodiles out of paper plates that ate one side or the other. Okay, that Pac-Man, maybe something like that. So this symbol means that the left side is greater than the right side. Okay, so this symbol means greater than, because we always read left to right. So if we're reading left to right, this side is greater than this side. Okay, so what do you think this one means? Less than. Thank you. Okay, so we have equal to, greater than, or less than. Now we can also combine this one with this one and say that it is greater than or equal to. And the last one is combining less than or equal 2. Greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. So I want you to think real quick about some like real world scenarios that might come to play here. So let's say you go to Worlds of Fun. Okay, you're younger than you are right now, maybe a little smaller, and there's a sign that says you must be what? At least
5 foot tall.
Perfect. 5 foot tall. I'm barely tall enough to ride the rides at Worlds of Fun. That's excellent. So if it says something like must be at least, we'll say 48 inches. 48 inches to ride this ride. Okay, so that would look like, okay, that phrase at least, you must be greater than or equal to 48 inches. So you must be greater than or equal to 48 inches.
I'm 5'6".
Okay? I'm sorry.
I'm 10 foot.
All right? So it's important to think about what this actually means, because we're going to graph these today, and we want to see a graph that represents something that makes sense to us. Okay? So this is kind of a real world scenario that you guys can think of, because I'm sure we've all been at an amusement park at some point in our lives or somewhere where we had a height requirement to get on something. Okay? So we must be at least 48 inches to ride this ride. So that would look like we are greater than or equal to 48 inches. Okay? So looking at these inequalities, there are 2 things that we have to pay attention to. Okay? So we're going to see something today like x is greater than 6. We'll just use that as our first example. X is greater than 6. Okay? The first thing we have to pay attention to, looking at this inequality, is do we have this or this? Okay, so is it just a greater than, or is it a greater than or equal to? Okay, so if it's just a greater than, we're going to put a circle on our line that's open. If it has the equal sign underneath it, then we're going to have a circle on our number line that is filled in. Okay, same thing here. Less than, open circle, less than or equal to, closed circle. Because these circles are going to represent anything greater than or less than that number. These circles are going to say, hey, we're going to include that number in our graph. Okay, so we have the line underneath it. We're going to have a closed circle. If we don't have a line underneath it, we're going to have an open circle. All right. The second thing we have to look at is, does our arrow point right or left? Okay? And here's how we answer that question. We look to see, first, is our inequality written variable, inequality, number? It has to be in that order to follow this rule. Okay? So, variable first, inequality symbol second, number third. Okay? If it's in that order, all we have to do is see where our symbol is pointing, and our arrow is going to point the same way. Okay? So we're going to see is it in the right order? Variable, inequality, symbol, and number. And then point the same direction as our symbol. And we'll do a couple of examples here so you can see what it would look like. Okay? So first we're going to decide, do we have an open circle or a closed circle? Then we're going to say which way does our arrow point. We're going to make sure it's in the right order, variable, inequality, number. If it's not, we'll talk about how to fix it. And then we're going to point the same direction as our symbol. The other thing I like to do, honestly, ladies and gentlemen, as a little hint over here off to the side, I like to read it out loud. Okay, I like to say x is greater than 6 because that will tell me that my graph is going to include every number that is greater than 6. So I like to read it out loud. So that's my hint for the day. All right, let's do a couple of practice. So what you're going to see on your worksheet today is you are going to see a number line. We're going to do 3. Okay, so we'll do 3. So let's go ahead and create 3 number lines so you know you have enough space. Okay, and your number lines are already going to be numbered for you today, but for our notes purposes, I figured it was easier if we just went ahead and created our own number line. And then you're going to see an inequality. Okay, so for number 1, let's do f is greater than 7. Number 2, let's do a is less than or equal to 5. And for number 3, let's do 6 is greater than p. Okay, so those are the 3 examples we're going to do in our notebook. All right, so the first thing we do is we're going to have a number line. I'm going to go ahead and I know that I need the number 7 on my number line. So I'm going to put 7 in the middle because it doesn't matter what number I have in the middle. Let's do 8, 9, 6, 5. That should be enough. We just need a couple numbers on each side. All right, so this is what your problem is going to look like. It's going to have an inequality, and it's going to say graph this inequality. When we're graphing something, ladies and gentlemen, all we're doing is giving a visual representation of what we see. Okay, so how can I represent this in a visual way? So rather than saying f is greater than 7, how can I put it on a graph? And you're going to graph a ton in 8th grade, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is answer the question, do we have an open circle or a closed circle? Open, right? Because we don't have the little equal sign line underneath our inequality symbol. It's just greater than. F is greater than 7. So we're going to go to the number 7 and we're going to put an open circle. Okay? We're going to go to the number 7 and we're going to put an open circle. Then we're going to see if it's in the right order. Do we have variable, inequality symbol, then number? Variable, inequality symbol, and then number? Yes. So we can follow the rule, point our arrow the same direction as our symbol. So our symbol is pointing to the right, so our arrow is going to point to the right. And it must be an arrow. Make sure you put an arrow piece on the end. Okay? So this graph represents the inequality. F is greater than 7. Okay, and that's where my hint comes into play. Read it out loud. If I look at this graph, does that